Hello, this is Glauz, and today I'm here to show you how to create your own character customization with Blendshapes in Unity. First off, you're required to download several programs, but first off with a disclaimer, we will be building this from scratch, so anyone that wants to create their own character customization can, with no knowledge, look at this video and start creating their own Blendshapes within Unity or character customization with Blendshapes. Though I expect you to have knowledge with Unity, and I expect you to have knowledge with C#, one of the main programming scripting languages built into Unity. But you do not need to know how to use a 3D modeling program I recommend. It is Blender. You can use any kind of 3D modeling program as long as you're familiar with it. You can still proceed with the video because it's mostly focused on the scripting aspect of it. And for those who do want to follow the entire video, and you are planning on making your own base meshes, be warned that we will be using a human base message which can be perceived as nudity. So if that's not something that you want to see, then I highly suggest that you close this video now, because we'll be working with human base meshes. So with that disclaimer out of the way, first off, since we're doing this from scratch, the program I recommend, because it's free and open source, is a Blender. Anyone can download it. It doesn't cost anything, and it's good all around. And what we're going to be using to generate our human base meshes, and this is why you don't need to know anything about Blender or how to actually build things in 3D, is because we have another free program, and it is also open source, which is MakeHuman. And you can create your human base meshes, and it's super simplistic and super easy. And the last download that we need is actually a plugin, so we can use Blender, or we can use MakeHuman to export a certain file format that Blender can recognize and import it through their pipeline. And that's with Thomas Larson's MakeHuman exchange. And the reason why we need this is just something I just explained, but originally MakeHuman is supposed to support Blender export, but the newest version doesn't allow it. So this video may be outdated in the future because of this. They may re-enable direct Blender supports supporting Blend files, but right now you can export to FBX and Collada and it'll still work. And depending on your 3D modeling program, you can not just use Blender, you can use whatever you're comfortable with. But this is something else you can use, so just make sure you go download each one of these and make sure you choose the correct operating system here. For Thomas Larson's, you can just go down here and click download repository and just make sure you download them. And it doesn't matter if you choose installer or zip. In the tutorial I'll be showing you with the zip file because I already have the installation. And if once you do download it, you'll be given 3 archives right here, and just make sure you extract each one. I already went through the process of extracting it because it takes quite a while. And you should get these 3 folders, and you should have Blender and MakeHuman and Thomas Larson. And of course, because this video is recorded in July of 12, the Blender version I'm using is 2.77a, and MakeHuman is 1.1.0. So keep note on that. This may not work like 6 months down the future, but for the way Unity handles it, hopefully it works. Blendshapes I see will be working the same way, possibly. But anyways, enough of the disclaimers. First off, we need to throw in some plugins into these folders. So let's go into MakeHuman first. And let's go in here. We want MakeHuman to export to the MHX2. So this is import. We need export. So under MakeHuman, let's go down to plugins and just simply drag and drop and move with Explorer. And now we're done with MakeHuman. That's all I had to do. And now Blender. Just go into Blender. And if you're using the installation, then just go into the file directory and go under scripts, add-ons, and simply drag and drop that in here. Make sure you don't accidentally put it into the folders. Yep, and it should be under this directory, and there now I can import whatever MakeHuman exports. So now we can start with our human base meshes. So I assume you should already be aware of the disclaimer, but we will be using this to generate our human meshes. So we're not going to create anything from scratch, so you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to actually know how to 3D model. You just actually need the program, because we need a 3D modeling program to manipulate the blend shapes. So MakeHuman is free, open source. It's really nice, and and it's multi-platform too. So if you're a Linux kind of person or a Macintosh, you can run it on those. And here we go. So there's a lot of different settings, and I'm not going to cover MakeHuman. That'll take several videos. First, let's just change the gender to one type. So male or female. I'm going to choose male. And if you're really good with MakeHuman, you can create celebrity lookalikes or even create yourself in here. But all we're going to care about is just go under here, the file, and we're going to go to export, and there should be a MakeHuman exchange right here. And we're simply going to export that to export anywhere you want where you can find it. I'm exporting it to my desktop. So into my desktop it goes. Let's just call this male face mesh. Nice and simple. You see the loading bar in the bottom. And there we go, it's done. So now we can close MakeHuman. This is the last time I'm going to see this in this video. I know we're not going to save. Oh wait, yes, I mean exit. Oops, sorry. And you'll see you have a file, and it also generated textures, which are going to be the eyes. You can use them if you want. It doesn't really matter for this video since we're focusing on Blendshapes. And now we go into Blender, and a lot of newbies who use Blender will get overwhelmed, and I don't blame them. But make sure you run the blender.exe, and a DOS screen will pop up. I'm not sure if this is the same for Linux and Macintosh. And you just have to wait a while. A lot of things get thrown into your memory. And it is a pretty amazing program for just being free. So just click on the background to remove that. And I'll try to cover the basics of Blender a little bit. I expect you to have kind of little knowledge on Blender, like how to move the camera. You just middle mouse click to move the camera. You can right click to bring up, actually you don't right click, you press spacebar to bring up the menu to get whatever you want. But just middle mouse click, you can rotate, and if you press A, you toggle highlighting everything. You don't highlight everything, so highlight everything, press X, delete, yes. Okay, nice and simple. And let's go in here and let's import our file that we just created. So if you go under import, but except my Blender's already set, so if you don't see your MakeHuman exchange here, what you need to do is you go to user preferences, because mine's already set through the registry or wherever it keeps the information on. So what you're supposed to do is go into Blender preferences, it's right here, or user preferences, and then make sure you go into add-ons and go in here and type in MakeHuman. And yours should be unchecked, and make sure you don't check this one. This was is the old and outdated version, the one that supports the 0.9. You want to use the 1.1.0, and just check this, and this is the MakeHuman Exchange 2 that we're going to import. So you just simply check mark it, make sure you save your settings, and if you want to change the theme, like to some dark theme, you can just go down here and choose one of these, and choose one that fits your preference, and just save user settings like I already did, and exit out. And there we go. Now you should be able to import. So go into here, import, and okay, it's at the very bottom. Go to desktop or wherever you put it, and just double click on it, and you get this giant base mesh. If you press your 5 on your num key, whoops, I pressed Z, you go into orthographic mode. Really nice. It's a great way to edit, and just right click on it, and it'll be highlighted, and hit the add tab key, and now you're in edit mode, and you can edit each of the vertices. So if you and you should be automatically on vertex mode. You can select lines down here, go into faces, and if you press G, it moves things. If you press S, it scales things, and if you press R, it rotates things. Those are your most basic ones. So transition, rotation, and scale. But we're gonna go into vertice mode. Or actually, let's get out of tab mode. You can mess around with that, and of course, just like every other application, you can press Ctrl Z and undo it. So mess around with that, be familiar with it if you're new to Blender. If you're not, then you can just skip ahead. So let's go back to tab mode, and this is where the whole Blendshapes come into play. So you go up here, and you'll see this little triangle, and you'll see under here shape keys. Different programs call it different things. I don't know why. It's Blendshapes, shape keys, morphs, whatever you want to call it. Blender calls it, Unity calls it Blendshapes, and Blender calls it shape keys, but it doesn't matter, they're both the same thing. So you go under here, press plus, and this will be, it'll give you the bases as the beginning if this is empty. That basically stands for this is going to be the thing, or this is the default thing that the shape keys will be modified on top of. So you, unless you want to make a change on the base mesh, this is what you're going to mess with, which is the basis. But we're not. So press plus, and let's do it twice, because we're going to be creating a slider that can go back and forth. And let's call it cheek. And make sure you follow a naming convention, because what I mean is you can say max, and that'll be your maximum slider, or you can call it +1 or some other thing. Just make sure you follow some naming convention that fits the maximum value and the minimum value, because that's how we're going to have our program read it. So cheek, and this is minimum. So make sure you highlight max, and this object should already be selected, of course. That's the reason why it shows the shape keys. Go into edit mode, and this is where the fun begins. So select a vertex like near the cheek, and if you go down here and you click enabled, you have something called proportional editing, and it's really fun. So if you press your G key, you'll have this sphere, and while not moving your mouse, if you scroll in and scroll out, this is your sphere of influence basically, and it edits your vertices that are in the circle. So you can slowly pull it out. If you scroll a lot, it pulls the entire thing. Scroll in, it pulls very little. And of course you can adjust the curves. The normal smooth curve is ideally the best for this. So just press G, just size it up appropriately, and try to not move the nose and everything, and you can just reselect and bring it here. And since this is and you'll notice that the other side's not being edited, so if you've been paying attention to this video and you didn't skip ahead going too crazy, just make sure you Control Z, and make sure we go into options and go into X mirror, and this should be already symmetrical. So if we go in here and press G, now you'll notice both sides are going. So you can pause the video now and basically just be really elegant if you want, and try your best. So that wasn't technically the cheek, and just try to be artistic, I guess, if you want. And then once you're done with it, you can press tab, and notice right here where it says the 0.00, if you click and drag with your left mouse click, you'll notice if you bring the slider to the left, it starts expanding, and I mean to the right, not to the left. And now just go to cheeks minimum, have that selected, and let's start bringing it in. And let's bring more. And there's the cheek, edit out. And there, now we have our slider going this way. So imagine if you have a slider in the middle, you go one way, increases, and if you go the other way, it decreases like that. And now you can actually pause the video and just create a whole bunch of stuff that we can edit here. And I'm probably going to speed this part up, and let's just add a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll come back right to you guys. Okay, I'm back, and if you notice, I only have for whatever reason, if you don't want the slider to go both ways, the programming will support that. So if you can help it, you can add a max at the end, but you don't actually need a max. So if you have a slider that only has, if it just goes from left to right or right to left all the way, and it doesn't start in the middle, then our scripting will account for that. So here we have chin height, and that's max, but you don't actually have to need the max, but I like to stick with the naming convention that we have. We can have it where it's just by itself and it doesn't need a minimum value or anything. So if you have one of those things that are default, where if you just want to change the ear height or something, and you don't want to decrease the ear height or some other kind of vertex that you want to change on the body, then that's totally acceptable, and I accounted for that in the scripting. So now that we have everything done, it's not the prettiest, and I'm not willing to spend a whole lot of time, but you get the gist. So okay, under file, what we need to do is, usually you could save as and export it directly into Unity as a blend file, and sometimes Unity will recognize it, but every time you update Blender or Unity, sometimes it breaks the compatibility and it can't just load it right away through the pipeline. So commonly what you need to do is you need to export it as an FBX, and Unity should definitely be able to read that. So just export to FBX. Let's put it on the desktop, and let's just call this human base mesh, and call it FBX, even though it's already an FBX tag. Just so it doesn't get confusing with the other one on the desktop. And now we could close out of this. Make sure you save just in case. If you want to go back and add more to this, you can always replace your other one, and it will never break the programming. So just exit out. And do you want to quit? Yes, we do want to quit. Okay, and here's that FBX file. Now let's get into Unity, and you'll notice I already have a character customization, of course, because I tested this out. So let's just call this character customization tutorial, and let's create the project. And of course, Unity will be slow, which is understandable because it has to build the project. And of course, the Visual Studio is something I use as an IDE, and that's going to take a while too. So if you use Mono, of course, it's going to work. Anything C#. If you're using JavaScript, Boo, or whatever else Unity supports, well, sorry, but I'm not going to cover those. So hopefully you can translate them yourselves. And I need to update my Unity. So here's Unity, your standard thing. Let's just minimize this, or just drag it out from the side. And since we have FBX, our exported model right here, we can literally just drag and drop this file. So let's just drag and drop it there. And it's going to be importing it, and it should be readable. And there it is. Let's just expand that. And here's our human-based mesh, and you'll notice that it looks kind of wonky, and for some reason the materials are set to translucent right from the start. I don't know why MakeHuman does that. That is a MakeHuman thing, unless Blender did something with it. But anyways, we can just drag and drop it here, and the model is huge, of course. You notice how big it was in Blender. You could set it in Blender, we could set it in Unity, it doesn't matter. So here's our human base mesh. Let's just go here in directional lighting, and actually let's first go into materials. It'll automatically create a materials folder here. And actually let's just be a little bit neater. Let's create a folder here, call it characters, just in case if you're, maybe it should be characters, it should be like race or character gen, I don't know. Characters would be more like the characters built off this mesh, but you get, that's not the point of the tutorial. So let's go into materials. And let's go into the default skin and take out the transparency. I don't know why that's a thing. And click here, and let's set it to its original color, so drag it all the way up here. Actually, that's not the original color. It didn't come with textures. And we can lower the smoothness. And the lighting's pretty bad, so let's just quickly go up here in the lighting tab. If you don't have that, you can just go in Windows and Lighting right here. And I'm just doing this just because I'm not a big fan of the lighting. And we can turn the intensity down. I like my ambient lighting, kind of. It doesn't look that good still. Actually, let's just change the directional lighting. Let's just change it where it looks at the object. And change the intensity. And there we go. There's our model. And of course, just to be a little bit neater, let's just go and create a game object, 3D object. And plane, and let's just set this at 0, 0, 0. Yeah, you can see how big this base mesh is, and let's just expand it. And let's just create a color out here really fast. I'm not really being neat now, but I just like showing off, just like to add some sort of contrast against this white color. And let's go into our camera. And since and I assume you know how to like move around in Unity, because it's you're trying to do some advanced tutorial with Unity right now. So if you cannot do what I'm doing right now with Unity, then this isn't the video. Go and learn how to do the proper controls and then come back. And let's just zoom in. Since we mostly modified the face, we're gonna be looking at the face. And you can just look at games and just go here and adjust it. Yeah, good enough. I'm not making this like for some AAA game or anything. It's just a tutorial. So you can see the face, and this is where you can see the magic of Blendshapes happening. If you click on the human mesh right here, you notice it doesn't look like anything is different about it. You click down here, and if you click on the body, which is where it was made on top of, you'll see the Blendshapes right here. And if you click on this little triangle, it'll open up, and you can see all the Blendshapes that you made in Blender that got exported and imported into Blender, or I mean into Unity. So here's your cheeks, and it goes from the values from 0 to 100. So if you go over 0 or you go below 0, it'll just cap on 0 and 100, even though technically the floats can go over it. And of course you can do the same with cheeks min. And you notice you can do both min and max at the same time. It might give you funky results, but that's not a problem. That's more of something a developer can play with, but the user shouldn't have access to playing with min and max on the same. They shouldn't be able to have max and min happening at the same time. And of course you can see everything works. You can check in Unity to see if it properly got loaded, and if you change your mind you can just go back into Blender, edit your MX2 file, and then re-export it, and you can just export it directly into Blender. And I'll replace this and update everything, and it shouldn't break the script. Anyways, let's get started with the programming of Blender and with the UI.